Good day friends, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I will be talking about two essays from a collection called The Mahatma and the Poet. The word Mahatma for us Indians always reminds us of Mahatma Gandhi, M.K. Gandhi, the father of our nation. And he is the topic of today, along with the poet. The poet here is Rabindranath Tagore, the first Asian to receive the Nobel Prize. The two essays that I am talking about are actually the letters exchanged between these two people. The first essay, The Call of Truth, is a long rejoinder from Tagore to Gandhi, originally appeared in Pravasi in Bengali. Pravasi was a magazine founded by Ramanand Chatterjee. It published many important Bengali authors, the most significant being Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore himself. His works are published in this magazine. Later, this essay was again published in Modern Review in English. Rabindranath Tagore and Mahatma Gandhi were two giant thinkers of modern India with vastly different ideas of nationalism. Gandhi and Tagore, the two great leaders of the Indian history, were known for having different opinions on specific issues concerning India's future and freedom movements. However, these differences in their intellectual understanding were not strong enough to wipe out the great sense of respect and admiration they had for each other. They were two extremely different personalities, politically and ideologically. However, they had a great sense of mutual respect and fellowship for each other. Tagore was the first notable contemporary to refer to Gandhi as Mahatma. Gandhiji called Tagore Gurudev, a term of respect by which many others called the poet. The title Mahatma was conferred to Gandhi at a grand reception held at Rasasala on January 27, 1915. Although students across India are taught that Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore gave Gandhiji the title of Mahatma, the Gujarat government says that the title was actually given by an anonymous journalist from Saurashtra. Rabindranath Tagore, a friend and critic of Mahatma Gandhi, once called him the living truth of life. While Rabindranath Tagore is often remembered as a Nobel laureate, a poet, and a philosopher, the part he took in India's nationalism debate before the country reached independence is often glossed over. Tagore, in fact, had criticized Mahatma Gandhi when Gandhi began a new movement, the Charkha, a protest against British might rooted in self-reliance. At a time when Gandhi's stature was at sky-high levels, Tagore wrote a scathing piece in Modern Review, a Calcutta-based magazine of great repute, titled The Cult of the Charkha. Rabindranath Tagore's Conversations with Mahatma Gandhi on Nationalism is prescribed for us in these two essays. The article criticized not just the non-cooperation movement, the Charkha, but the ideas of patriotism and nationalism as well, which Gandhi stood up for. As is livelihood for the individual, so is politics for a particular people, a field for the exercise of their business instincts of patriotism. All this time, just as business has implied antagonism, so has politics been concerned with the self-interest of a pugnacious nationalism. Tagore wrote this statement in September 1925 edition of Modern Review. There is an exchange of ideas between Gandhi and Tagore in these two essays. In the essay The Call of Truth, Rabindranath Tagore advises people not to fall for the ready-made victuals offered by the British. When one becomes so easygoing, he says, the person also can become parasitical, that is, completely dependent on what is artificially made by the British. Instead of that, he advises people to follow what they are already doing, that is to retain their nationalism or the nativism. Tagore says that the true function of a human being is to convert the impossible to the possible. But when one becomes parasitical, this function is lost. Compared to lower animals which are actually parasites, Tagore says man is really blessed. He gives the example of bees. For millions of years, bees have continued to have the same pattern for their hive. They do not change it at any cost. So that is, there is no development in their mind at all. Their mentality is said to be confined to all the age-long habits. Whereas human beings, they are very much interested in conducting different experiments. So this new concept is required for a human being to grow, says Tagore. Unlike other animals, man refuses to submit to the rule of things. That is why Tagore says he is determined to bring about happenings that have never been before. When in danger, the deer is said to run away, and the tortoise is taken to refuge in biding, that is to hide inside its shell. It stays in the same place for a long period of time without even moving. Whereas human beings, when they are supposed to face either an elephant or a tiger or some eagle or any dangerous being, it is natural for a human being to use efficient weapons against these dangerous animals. It is natural for the human beings and it is impossible for the other beings. So when human beings depend on anything ready-made, Tagore says, man loses his ability to think in his way. Development is another name for human generation. Man discovered lighting fire using the flint, that is the stones, and then he has reached an extent where he can even melt an iron ore and hammer it into various shapes. Tagore says that man's strength is in converting that which resisted more stubbornly into a better ally. He has made various useful objects out of things which actually did not support him. It is in man's inner nature not only to find success in its activity but also to find joy in it. Tagore insists on penetrating further and further into the depths, from the obvious to the hidden, from the easy to the difficult, from parasitism to self-determination, from the slavery of his passions to the mastery of himself. And he says that is how man has won. And he hopes that the 20th century people also would follow the same and not become dependent on anything that is imported or ready-made by the British. Regarding the people's rights, Tagore gives an example of one episode that happened when he edited the Sadhana magazine. In that magazine, he says he tried to convey to the world that man should progress towards what ought to be by rousing all his inner powers by means of the force of his soul. He there advises people not to beg for their rights, not to repeatedly try for others to provide them the rights. He says it is in the inner nature of man to have his rights. Being deprived of the outside rights is nothing, says Tagore. Constantly bearing the burden of prayers and petitions, he says, is actually being trapped rather than being arrested for doing things that one does on his own. During the boycott of Manchester in Bengal, Tagore says, the Bombay mill owners had a profit to a super foreign degree. He advises his people, that is the people of Bengal, that they should be hating anything that is foreign. Bombay also is not their own. It is an Englishman who is producing things in Bombay and supplying to the Bengal people. So there, they should be hating anything that is external, anything that is from the outside. Hating just the British or hating just what they bring is simply Maya, that is an illusion, says Tagore. Tagore quotes the Shastras telling that truth, even when it is small, can rescue us from the terror which is great. Fear is actually the atheism of the heart, he says. It cannot be overcome from the side of negation. Tagore says that fear can be overcome only through truth, and that truth is positive. It is the affirmation of the soul, he says. If even a little of it is roused, it attacks negation at the very heart and overpowers it wholly. Tagore's fear is not in the British. He says, alien government in India is a veritable chameleon. Veritable, that is, it can change into any form. Today he says it is in the guise of the Englishman. Tomorrow perhaps it might appear as some other foreigner. Thus he warns people that however much we try hard to fight against this chameleon with lethal weapons, it will always elude our pursuit by changing its skin or its color. Thus, everybody's task in this situation is to fight against this unknown enemy. Tagore says, just because one is born in a particular geographical location, it cannot become his own country. And claiming it as his own country is just a parasitical existence, Tagore says. He says that only can be a man's true country which he can help to create by his wisdom and will, his love and his actions. Thus, only when a man contributes to his nation, he can claim it to be his own. According to Tagore, to gain one's own country means to realize one's own soul more fully expanded within it. And he says it can be done only when we are engaged in building it up with our service, our ideas and our activities. If one wants to know more about a soul's contribution and its expansion, one can read Tagore's Swadeshi Samaj written in 1905, which he has quoted here. In that essay, he says he has mentioned one truth, that we must win our country not from some foreigner but from our own inertia, our own indifference. So making a move from this inert position is a big challenge, says Tagore. He points out to the fact that any public benefit done by the alien government adds to the credit of that government and not to ours. So whatever outside advantage or public benefit that we get from the outsiders will not benefit either our country or us in any way. It is equivalent to selling the soul for some material advantage, says Tagore. Tagore then mentions about the past where he has reminded the people about these same truths and the response that he has received from them. He says it was just the journalists who responded very loudly to it, and the others who were of credit and courtesy also were unable to speak to him in restrained language. And he says the causes of their silence is, one was anger and the second one was greed. Speaking about his own experience of anger, Tagore says, giving free vent to angry feelings is a species of self-indulgence. He gives examples where he had participated in rallies in picketing, burning, placing thorns in the path of those whose way was not theirs and such. Now, thinking about the past, he says, anger had resulted in them forgetting their main object. Talking about greed, Tagore says, it was like being in a reduced price sale, where everything was sold at half price, and there was a craving to buy everything, and he says it was just beggary in threatening tones. Talking about this greed, he says it was just the outside Maya which was drawing their attention and which was in their dream. There again, that illusion made them forget their main goal. While taking help from the British, he says, our hands were at the British feet, and while opposing them, our hands were at their throats. So there was no hand at all free in order to freed our nation, he says. Tagore ironically is hinting at the fact that Indians were busy either supporting or opposing the British and not at all bothered about ruling their own nation. Tagore traces the reason for this failure as something that was within us and not anything outside. The problem, he says, is in setting apart one place for emotions and another for practices. While emotions dealt with patriotism, practices were of the easygoing and buying things from the British. Tagore compares the looting by the British to a robber stealing things from a house. He says, everything is Maya, just like a person getting hold of Aladdin's lamp. People believe that they have everything, but when the thief has left taking everything with him, the illusion is gone and then the person is left only with wailing. Tagore quotes a few examples of the partition days where only the youth had been considered, and in the heat of their youth they had to pay high prices in order to obtain freedom. He concludes that a country must be the creation of all of its people and not of one section alone. He has realized this at a later stage, and he says the nation must be the expression of all their forces of heart, mind, and will. Comparing political progress to a steed, Tagore questions his people whether it is time to manufacture our own carriage or not. He says, isn't it time? So he is actually reminding people that we should all get together in order to obtain our freedom and move our country on our own. Instead of depending on somebody else for political progress, that is the British, we should depend on ourselves to do what we have to be doing. Tagore insists Indians to not fall for any allurements. People are not bees or spiders to lead fixed lives. It is always in their hands to fight for and obtain their freedom, he says. Taking examples from the Indian lifestyle, Tagore complains that we have hung ourselves so much to Manusmriti that even in the 20th century, people do not think of crossing the sea or eating with a Musalman. He says that this condition brought about by blind routine and habit is like that of a servant who refuses to disobey his master. Depending on outside impulses makes the real master, the internal man, a slave, says Tagore. Tagore expresses pride for the success of the Swadeshi movement. He says that it is far better than the vaporings that existed as freedom call only in words for the upper class, and that too in the colonizer's language. At this point, praising Gandhi for involving in the freedom struggle, Tagore supports the idea of calling him Mahatma. Gandhi's strength in attracting the common people's attention only through truth and not any political strategy is equivalent to gaining freedom itself, says Tagore. This call reached to him like music when he was abroad, he says. No commercial or military exploiter has been as strong as Gandhi in this matter. It was possible, Tagore says, because the love that these people, even in abroad, had towards their own nation is more powerful than the Englishman's greed for power. Returning to India, Tagore realized that Indians were baited into believing of their freedom and their mouths tightly shut forever in unquestioning obedience to the colonizers. And they convinced Tagore, saying that it will serve to make our countrymen do what is necessary. Their opinion appears to Tagore as if India that voted for truth did not deserve Swaraj. Their words hint that all of them have chosen the path of untruth only to obtain external freedom. Freedom, being an indefinite form, is used as an object of temptation and left to the discernment of the Indians, but they have repeatedly failed to define it from the colonizer's perspective. Tagore has realized this after his return to Calcutta. He thus points out that delusion is the root of all slavery and questions if freedom means freedom from all this illusion, Maya. Tagore further puts out his fear that the ghost of misgiving has come in front of us in the form of the exerciser and further increased the danger of compromising freedom in the name of setting a date to obtain it. Using examples of a golden rod and its wielder, Tagore says that No congress or other outside institution succeeded in touching the heart of India without truth and love as its main elements. Even after seeing the power of truth, Tagore asks if we should ever cease to believe in it. He gives illustrations of searching a whim player who can strike a chord in his heart when even the best players fail to do it. He finally finds rapport with one and is happy about it. He gives another example of wanting to learn the veena. When he has no money, the one-stringed wooden instrument cannot replace the veena, and a music teacher also should not be obliging about this fact. Here, Tagore tries to point out that the task of a master is to guide one's followers in the right direction, however difficult the path is. Showing shortcuts does not make one a successful master, he says. In order to take the path of truth, the whole nation must strive together. This effort towards attaining salvation through truth began in the days of our gurus, who lived in the old forests of India. Tagore compares the movement of the knowledge seekers from various parts of the world towards the abode of these saints to the flowing of the rivers and the passing of the time. He proposes that a guru should send forth a call to lead people on the paths of their karma. Tagore then reminds us to consider this as the long-awaited opportunity and assign Gandhi the task of a guru as there is truth in him. Tagore defines freedom as a complete awakening in full self-expression. He questions Gandhi's call to spin and weave, spin and weave. Tagore is unhappy that this cannot be the call of the seekers of truth. He compares this to the gathering of the bees by losing their sex and becoming neuters. It is easy for them and hence they accept, he says. In the same way, it is easy for people to spin and thus they also accept. Man's wealth of power can become manifest only when the utmost is claimed, he says. Quoting European examples, Tagore says that man, to a certain extent, has already become a slave of the big machines, and the day is not very far when he becomes a slave of the small machines also. Thus, he advises Gandhi to limit the popularizing of charkha and focus on the freedom movement as a whole. Tagore questions the involvement of the charkha movement in the freedom struggle. He opposes it and does not support the existence of it even for a short period of time. Tagore also discourages the dictation of beliefs through oracles. Supporting such, he says, is like cutting at the root of a tree while pouring water on the top. He further questions the burning of clothes during the Swadeshi movement. Tagore expresses unhappiness for bundling up economics and a fictitious moral dictum of foreign cloth being impure. His opposition at the first place is towards the habit of blindly obeying orders. Keeping the importance of clothes, especially to the poor and to the women, in mind, Tagore disapproves the idea of burning clothes. Considering the war scenario, Tagore points out that war has shaken the foundation of the Western civilization. But however, people don't seem to realize that. Thus, all nations are now forced to think collectively of the whole world as one entity. Tagore argues that out and out, hypocrisy is an almost impossible rarity to be achieved. The mind always exists in the duality of self-interest and enlightened interest. When we pass judgment from our former experience, it is sure to be selfish, he says. Our mind always is unable to admit the opposites together. Only a thought about the future can counsel us, provide large-heartedness, and unite us with true wisdom. Considering the time spirit, Tagore reminds us that he has already spoken condemningly about the League of Nations and the Indian Reforms Council. Even now, his argument is not to support them, but to say that they do not need utter opposition from anyone. Like a bird that has time to look at the new light of dawn and time for a song before going in search of food, Tagore says that we also should belittle the immediate work at hand and answer the call of the universal humanity. While being ruled by others, looking at the shortcomings was fine. But now Tagore claims that it would result in a sorry picture of India if the same thing is continued. While the West has started accepting the Indian concepts of yoga, sannyasin, and Advaita, Tagore's question is why we Indians cannot subvert our bondage of nationalism for a while and accept the true spirits of these philosophies of the Indian origin. Tagore appreciates the Western sannyasins, taking for example Romain Rolland and few others who cheerfully submit themselves to all the insults of the mankind, compared to Indian sannyasins who spend their time in negation and harping on others' faults. Tagore at the end takes the opportunity to remind Gandhi and all others about the Supreme Being who should be remembered at the first place. And there ends our letter written by Tagore. Thank you.